As an English teacher, writing is very important to me. Writing is how I assess students' ability to craft arguments. Writing is important for expression. We read writing all day long in English classrooms. Writing is really important to me as a person because I really learned that the way I process things is through writing, be it journaling or sometimes using those experiences to write like poetry or songs. I just really, really love writing and literature, so much so obviously that I studied it in college and then decided to teach that to young kids. But I think the beauty of writing is that it really is one of the purest glimpses we can get into one's soul and one's mind without being too invasive. And that's why it's the foundation of art so many times, because it really is this beautiful glimpse into one's heart and mind that you wouldn't be privy to without that piece of writing. So this is Coffee and Catastrophe with Brent and Gabi.
Fox, yeah.
What role does writing play in your life?
Earlier this week, I reached a milestone. I, since January 1st, have written over 100,000 words.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Not like ever, but just like since January 1st. And it's actually just in my journal. Like I write a minimum of 1,000 words a day.
Wow. And you count them?
So like on Microsoft Word, there's like the word counter at the bottom. So like let's just say like I start off with like I stop at like 1015. Then I know if I reach like 1115, then I've made 1,000 words, and it's always beyond that. So there's some entries where I've written 2,000 words.
Yeah.
I wrote a couple of recent entries that were like 1,800 words, and then for Black History Month, every single day of the month. Throughout the entire month on Facebook, I actually wrote a small biography of Black stand-up comedians every single day. So it was 28 comedians profiled, and each of them were at least 1,000 words. My last one with Patrice O'Neill, that was almost 4,000 words.
Yeah, well, you love him, and you have a lot to say about him.
Oh, yeah. So it wasn't work at all. Like Patrice O'Neill, Bernie Mac, and Steve Harvey, those were probably like my longest ones. The best one maybe might be my Tracy Morgan one. That one was really like I was really happy with. Same with Keenan and Kel, just like all the research I did. So on top of that and doing like my own creative work, I'm collaborating on a project with like a friend, and then I'm also like creating like another project on the side. So I would say altogether, as of this time right now, I think it's April 8th. I have probably written well over 200,000 words just in this year alone. This is the most I've ever written. Like even across like school, like if you were to take up all my assignments and combine them together, like 1,000 words ain't shit for me anymore. Like if I went back to school and they said write a 10-page paper, I'd be like, okay, like I can like extend out my thoughts and ideas now. So it's really important. Like writing is so important in my life now. Ever since 2017, like I've tried writing for 2 months and then I gave up, and then I fell into a huge depression, not because of that, but then 2018, I wrote every single day. Today, I write every single day. Like it's just, I can't, it's part of my routine now. I can't, even if I don't write one day, like the next day I write the entry and, at least write highlights and shit. Like, like I write, okay, like here I did this, here's how I felt. And then like I know how to reflect on it. But damn, dude, like writing has just completely changed my life the past couple of years. Yeah,
writing plays a really big role in my life, especially during the recovery process. Like I've always loved journaling, but I never made it like a ritual or like a practice throughout the day as part of my self-care routine. And then when it was like the last day of the year of 2018, I went to Target, and they have these cool spiral notebooks that are called decomposition notebooks, and they're made out of like recycled paper, and they have these like really cool hardcovers, but it's just like a spiral notebook. And I made it a goal to every single day journal about, what's going on in life and in my head. And it's really therapeutic. I also make sure that I write down at least 4 times a week, like a gratitude list of like what I'm really grateful for. And that's really helpful for keeping things in perspective. And, what I find really therapeutic right now is sometimes I'll go back and read entries of things that are happening or like that were going on. I even have a notebook from like last year when I was like going through that breakup with that guy, and I'm able to kind of like look at it and process through it almost like through different eyes, because I feel like I have like grown and changed since that guy and I broke up. Not Cody, but another guy. And so that's like really cool and therapeutic to like see that. I also, as I said, when I opened the podcast, like I really process things through writing and things become clearer and more understandable through that regard. I also, every time I prepare for something, like a job interview or when I would study, I would make a study guide with like pen and pencil and I would like write a lot, like questions that I had or things that I knew that they were going to ask me and like what my answers would be. Or like if there's a unit test, I would write like a summary of like everything. So writing in that regard really is a huge part of my thinking process. And actually, as a teacher of writing, I know for a fact that writing is processing. And for example, like there's never a time in my classroom where I give a question spur of the moment. Like I should say it's rare. It's not that it never happens, but the majority of the time, if there's gonna be a foundation for discussion, like the set of questions that I give students that'll be like, you know, that will permeate the discussion, they have time ahead to, and I should say they have those questions ahead of time to prepare by writing answers to all of them. Because as you're writing, that is you thinking, that is you processing the work or whatever. And, of course, writing is also a creative endeavor of mine. A lot of the things that go through my head end up being the foundation for poetry or songs. It's not to say I don't write stuff off the cuff though, because like I remember when Kyle and I were collaborating, he was like really impressed that I could like think of lyrics like on the spot, but I kind of don't like, I feel like they lack depth every time I do that, so I don't really like it. But that is like a really big part of like my creative process is like I'll get ideas like from things that I've like thought of and maybe written down before. And I haven't made it a goal of mine to write like a certain amount every day. I will say that, you know, I took that creative writing workshop when I was in college because I kind of had to for like or it was like to fulfill some requirement. And it wasn't that I didn't like creative writing. It's just that like, I don't think I do really well writing short stories or like, I don't think I could really write a novel. That's like seems too intense and like long form. I like kind of like the short punchiness of like poems and songs.
I feel you. See, with me, I like writing biographies or at least like truth, like something that's like an actual event that has happened. I tried writing creatively before and I've enjoyed like just the process, but overall it's hard for me to convey a feeling based off of a work of fiction.
Yeah.
At least I could possibly transfer that to, you know, like start from a real feeling and then just move that to another avenue. But I can't access that as easily unless I'm writing, you know, about something that has happened like in real life now, because I can like easily access my senses and just like my own like perspectives and stuff. And I found out when I've been writing 1,000 words a night, I'm catching the patterns of words I use. And I'm also like using a lot more words I've never used before, like acme, like ACME, and, you know, shit like that, or like other words like catharsis, or, you know, like just like undisputably, or, you know, like just all kinds of.
Irrefutably.
Exactly. You know, all kinds of shit like that. So nothing off the top of my head, but it's always just like free flowing. And I've been working with students for the past 11 years now. And I mean, I'm not a teacher like you. But I noticed that, at least like with like the tutoring that I've done, a lot of people who do come in and ask for help with writing always say that they're terrible writers. Yeah. And what I try to teach them is writing, at least in my perspective, the last thing writing is writing. Mm-hmm. Like if they see Harry Potter, they're like, oh man, J.K. Rowling just wrote this whole series. And it's like, she didn't write a single fucking word. She edited those words. I think the hardest part for students to realize is that the heaviest part of the writing process is your planning and your editing. Like I find that like I'm a person that really front loads the process into planning everything. I hate when I don't hate, but like I hate when students are like, well, I just more so start writing and I just go from there. And like, I mean, that's one strategy you can take is to do like a quick write or like a free write where you just like take the prompt and like kind of do a brain dump of everything you think about the topic or that you could do to support the topic. But then from there, you've got to go in and edit out like what you mean and what makes this a good argument or what's helpful in it and what's not. And oftentimes students think that they have to use like a bunch of big words and vocabulary to be like, make their work sound quote unquote good. And it's like, it's quite the opposite. I actually had a professor in college who was like,
you know, it's much better to have accessible language in your work than it is to, you know, just go on about whatever, or like use these highfalutin language just because it's highfalutin and because it's academic. And I think that is like really true. It's interesting too, like the different writing styles. It's kind of sad because in my high school, we get away from creative writing a lot unless you take like the elective creative writing. And I guess in like the journalism class that I taught, we do a lot of like journalistic writing. But most of the writing we do in my regular English classes are like answering questions for discussion. Maybe you might write an answer about like a comprehension stuff, like what happened in this chapter, like prove to me that you read. And like we do like analytical stuff. Like sometimes we do literary analysis, sometimes we do research, sometimes we do, I mean, everything is an argument. I do remember though that like the beauty of writing is it's so fluid. And that's where there's kind of a space for like everyone and their voice. And I always try to tell that to students at the writing centers that I've worked at.
Of course, because a lot of the mechanics of writing is kind of lost in its purpose. You know, a lot of people, or at least a lot of the students that I work with, they automatically like say that they're not good enough because they don't see themselves as being capable. But then I've given them the editing tools, like just a little simple shit, like, okay, read your shit out loud.
That is the number one. Read your shit out loud.
Yeah, and then like then they hear it, and then they just correct almost everything they say because like it's just playing. Like writing is just saying, it's just speaking, playing dress up with what you say.
Oh my God, I tell kids all the time, like, okay, they're like, I don't know how to say this, and I'm like, okay, well, just verbally explain it to me, right? And then they'll start talking, and as they start talking, I just type down verbatim what they said, and then I'll show them and be like, doesn't that kind of work? And they're like, oh yeah. So, I mean, it's not to say that you don't learn like specific tools on like how to explain evidence or like how to blend quotes. Funny enough, and this is the other thing with writing, a lot of it is subjective. Example, one of my coworkers believes she doesn't like quote blending. She thinks it is a stylistic choice. And I was like, really? Because I really like it when it blends into quotes. And she's like, well, I don't think it's necessary. Same with like, let's just put it out there. There's two types of people in the world. The people who use the Oxford comma and those that are wrong. But people wrongfully choose to omit the Oxford comma.
So for the people who may not know what that is, what is the Oxford comma and how do you use it correctly?
So the Oxford comma is that in a list of 3 items or more, you put a comma before the conjunction and. So the classic example is like, if I say for breakfast, I had eggs, toast, and orange juice, those are 3 separate items. But if I omit the Oxford comma, it becomes eggs as one item and toast and orange juice. In effect, without that comma there, make it one item. Like I put orange juice on my toast. And that's what I usually tell kids. Like, that's how I explain it to them. But in like, for example, in AP style, Associated Press style for journalism, you never use an Oxford comma, which I find horrible. And it makes me want to gouge my eyes out every single fucking time I read it because it doesn't make fucking sense. But yeah, so that's the Oxford comma.
So why isn't it used in journalism? Has there been like a...
It's just the style, I believe. I think it's that like the Associated Press style guide has been handed down for generations of journalists. And that's like all I can think of.
Yeah. The ones I run into the most are like the misspelling of common words such as through.
Like THRU?
Yeah, as opposed to like, you know, like I've been through some shit. Mm-hmm. Or not that they would write that, but
when people say like accept, not accept as in like I accept you, Brent, for who you are, but like I like all fruit except for oranges. Like yes. It's EXCEPT. One thing about me in writing, I am not I'm still working on my spelling as an adult. And like in truth, there was like some coworker I had and she was like appalled that I'm not a very good speller. That was not correct grammar. That I do not spell very well. Is that correct? I think so. And so then she was like upset that I didn't know how to spell. And she's like, you're an English teacher. And I was like, spell check exists for a reason. I'm sorry. Although funny things, like to your point about make sure that you read your writing out loud in the editing process. My friend and I were just laughing. She received a essay and I forget whatever book they were reading, there was a character named Mrs. Bowles, like Bowles, and instead the kid inverted and it became Mrs. Bowels or something like that. And so the whole paper it said Mrs. Bowles, Mrs. Bowles, Mrs. Bowles. And then one of her coworkers collected a paper on the book Fahrenheit 451 and the kid mistyped boobs in the vent, not books in the vent. And the whole paper was boobs in the vent, boobs in the vent, boobs in the vent.
That's
It becomes a story of rebellion to really scary if we make it boobs in the vent.
right. Sometimes, especially with ESL students, and it has nothing to do with like the content of like their writing style, but there are some students, even who are not ESL, who rely heavily on the thesaurus in Microsoft Word.
It's so horrible.
And what happens is, so for instance, they were writing an essay. I had a student who was writing an essay about how, like a values, like essay, like why, like what do you love in your life? And just, I love my dog. So they said love so much throughout the essay that what they did was they highlighted love and tried to find a synonym. So then what happened was the student wrote a sentence that says, I make love to my dog. So, and then I was like, all right, let's have a talk right here. For instance, is it any good? No. But so then I was like, what do you mean here? And she's like, and then she just said she wanted to find a different word for love. And I'm like, do you know make love means you're having sex with your dog? You're like, oh, no. And then you like changed it immediately. And then, but that's like still a common thing that I see across the board because like the thesaurus isn't accurate to the context of what you're saying your sentence. Not every synonym like falls in place with like the like some.
Yes, I explain that to kids. Like every word has different connotations and denotations that affect its meaning. So like you might be saying like, you know, Nick Carraway of The Great Gatsby accepts Daisy and Tom. Accepts is a much different word than tolerates, even though they might be synonyms.
Yeah.
So
same with like even saying synonyms for swear words. It's hard to like because we are able to say like this is a lot of shit, this is a lot of fuck, this is a lot of dick, this is a lot of tits, this is a lot of motherfucking shit. Like there's just a lot of variation, and this is the same thing with regular vocabulary too. So that's why I say editing is such an important part of writing because what we can do is we can actually make corrections. So it's kind of like what maybe social media and Twitter should be, because it seems like a lot of posts that are written aren't articulated enough before they are written. They are impulsively written as at best a first draft. At least with Twitter, you have a little bit of a chance to like edit what you say because it's only within 160 characters. However, it's still based off of impulse. So like what I do is whenever I work with a student, especially long term, I don't turn them into writers. I'm like, I said, like, you're never going to be the writer you want to be unless you become the editor you didn't know you think you could have been.
No, for sure.
You know, and I turn them into great editors because like me, myself, I'm not saying I'm a great writer, but I'm a great editor because that's like my background, even just working with film. Especially like my background in documentary film, where the story is found in the editing process, not during the filming. And I feel the same way about writing because, you know, with me, I'm very unorthodox. I'm kind of like what you were mentioning earlier, where I just start with what I feel and what I know I want to say, and then I play with the structure afterwards.
Yeah, sometimes I'll try to use a specific like metaphor or like symbolism, and it doesn't work the first 2 to 3 times, and then but then I get it. So for example, I was writing about my like eating disorder and like my mind, and I kind of came up with this image of kind of like it's like this poisonous root that like chokes out all of the other flowers or like vegetation in the garden. And I was really trying to work with that as like a symbol, and just I didn't like know how to do it without it sounding like cliche and dumb. And I like had to rewrite it like 2 to 3 times, and then I finally like solidified it and I was like, oh yeah, here we go. I feel like once you get like the juices flowing like creatively, and like you just get your head in like that specific headspace, like then it's good. I do remember, so that creative writing workshop I took, the professor who taught it, his writing process was every morning he got up and he sat at his computer or typewriter for, I think, 3 to 4 hours. Like he put out a whole block because he knows that like creatively he is most like with it in the morning. Like he knows his process. And I feel like I'm that way too. Like I get I'm most productive probably between the hours of like 7 and noon every single day. And it's probably conditioning from being in school and stuff. But like if I want to get work done, it happens then, you know, and then the other time of day I like work out or at least I should. But yeah, I feel like And I often thought about like everything he writes in those 4 hours every day. It's probably, I would say maybe 20% of it would be good. You know what I mean? Just by sheer nature of it. Have you ever, so I think, again, kind of like thinking back to the idea, like you can't force it to a certain degree, and things that you write when you're under the gun just kind of suck, I feel like. Have you ever like had that moment of like inspiration or like lightning in a bottle?
Yes.
Could you talk about your experience with that? I want to see if it's akin to mine.
See, with me, it's so different because from 2012 to about 2018, the beginning of 2018, I was in a complete rut, only because I was in a bad state of mind. Those are like the dark years. But
the dark ages, if you will.
The dark ages were just like nothing came through. But it was mainly like my self-esteem through it all. But now, like ever since the beginning of 2018, ever since I started like writing more consistently, it just kind of opened the floodgates for creativity. And what happens to me is like I don't prepare for most of the creative stuff that I think of or write down. It just comes to me. It's completely at random. It's literally like it's like fishing.
Yeah.
Like I cast my shit out there and then like I'm just waiting. But even still, like I'm not even in the water, and then a fish just jumps into my fucking boat. Mm-hmm. I'm just like, holy shit, what do I do with this now? So like, and then like once that comes, I'm like, oh my God, like it starts to make more sense. And once it starts gaining more familiarity, then I'm able to just really like run with it, and it completely takes a shape. And more oftentimes than not, it looks different, completely different than what I intentionally started out with, especially if it's creative, because I know like there's a feeling that I want to convey, but most of the time it's so abstract that it's hard to articulate into word. Mm-hmm. And some people, like there's some writers that like you can feel anything they feel, just like with so many like little words. It's like, holy shit, you know, it just makes so much sense. You know, I have a better gift with that, like when I speak as opposed to when I write. Even though I do like my writing, I'm still able to like play with the structure and like the storytelling and convey those feelings through my writing. But like with me, it's just so random. It's kind of annoying because I wish I can go and like sit down and say, all right, I'm just going to let all this shit come to me. And, you know, it's kind of like a metaphor I talked to you about a few weeks ago off air about the dream. Like when we go to sleep and we dream, like in order to prepare ourselves for the dream, we actually have to lay down, close our eyes, make sure that like we have some sort of support on our head. And then like we're in our most vulnerable moment. And then like the dream happens to us. We don't choose to dream. It just fucking happens to us every single night, no matter how bad you want to dream, no matter what you want to dream about. It's really hard to just say like, all right, I'm going to have this dream, because if that was me, it would be the exact same dream every night. And it would get to the point where Selma Hayek would be like, okay, Brent, you could stop smelling my armpits. God. I don't know why she sounds like Tommy Wiseau, but it's a dream. So, but the same thing happens with creativity, because when we are most vulnerable and prepare ourselves, creativity happens to us. And that's how it happens to me. So when it just like manifests itself, like in my mind and in my thoughts, and like that's what I'm feeling, I can't do anything with it. Like right now, I'm working on a project that I'm going to hopefully get done with this year. That it's just based off of a feeling. Like I know how it's going to begin. I know how it's going to end, but I don't know the journey like in between. And that's just so fucking exciting, because every day, like it just comes with like a new idea, and like I'm just slowly building it. And it's just, you know, has such a profound effect on my life. And I think just the fact that I'm writing every day is just jogging my memory, and it's just really helping me like articulate. So that's kind of like how I'm dreaming in a sense, is that like instead of like laying down and, you know, wanting the dream to come, it's actually writing and like putting my mind in that perspective to absorb that creativity that I, you know, have just always had in myself, you know, like just that's just how my mind works.
And I feel the same, because when I was in college and my job was a blogger, like I was very fluent at writing. Like that is like how my ability to cogently and like coherently write really was born out of that, because it was my job every single day to like find something that was going on in Chicago in the art scene and write about it, and then like do social media about it. So I think it really came for me there. And I try to tell my kids, like, the more you write, the better you will get at it. Like, it's like anything. It's like a muscle. For me, the best ideas that have ever happened to me, it feels like a ghost or a spirit moving through me. And I believe I've talked about this before, but Elizabeth Gilbert, who's the author of Eat, Pray, Love, she had her first TED Talk. She talks about Tom Waits. And Tom Waits, the blues musician, has this like metaphor where he says that like you're kind of like in a field, and then all of a sudden this like spirit or ghost moves through your body, and as fast as you can, you're trying to get like your pen and paper in hand and write that shit down, and you're like trying to hold onto the tail of the ghost and like keep it inside so you can get down everything at once, but like it'll just like move through you just as fast as it came. It's like lightning strikes. And I have one song that I literally had that experience when I've had, I think 2 of my songs have been written like that, where I was literally, the most recent one when it happened, I was in my car driving to work last year. And then all of a sudden it was just literally like, and I was like, holy fuck. And so I took like my phone and I had to do like speech to text while I was driving, and like wrote all of it in a text message to myself because it just moved through me. And the same happened with, another song like years ago where it was just like boom there, and I had to like write it down as fast as I could before I forgot it. And again, I like those more than like the songs that I write on the fly, because they're just like, they've just come from this like place that I can't explain, and it's like really cool to like have that experience. And like I totally think it relates to what like the ancient Greeks thought, that they were muses, and that they like once you tapped into them, they spoke through you. And I think it's like just like this cool idea. Interestingly, last summer I made it my goal like every day to get up and try to write music, and like not a lot came from that. Actually, I got the biggest like creative spurt after seeing the Yeah Yeah Yeahs in concert last May, and I think it's because I just love Carano so much, and like it just like made sense and like totally inspired me to do everything. But yeah,
see, that's really interesting, because with me it feels like the opposite. See, like I don't feel like there's a spirit possessing me. It feels like I'm the spirit, and it's just like all the other real life shit just kind of gets in the way. And then when I'm able to just kind of let all of that go, like when I kind of let my thoughts, just deter from that, I'm able to just really, because it seems like I could be in a state where I'm just creative all the time. And once I find a way to like kind of relate like the shit that I've been feeling and experiencing into something else that's even greater, that's kind of how I move on from it. So kind of like with some of the topics that we've talked about, like the depression episode and then the regret episode, I feel like I've completely moved on from those things, like just by simply articulating it like in a vocal way. So it just like it's always there within me. It's just like, the responsibilities of being I gotta be a responsible adult. I gotta get out of my own way. And, I just really like you are your own worst enemy. And I really felt that to be the case with me. So sometimes like I feel like I just want to go on a vacation somewhere, just, not be tied to my phone and just kind of let my thoughts wander and just write everything down that I have within me and like just take that into a creative avenue. And I actually did 3 albums like that in the past, if you want to call it those. Like my friend who I was collaborating on, or who I am collaborating with now, like we're kind of loosely based off of like his family. And like we just completely bastardized the characters in there. But each individual album, I was actually passively working out something that was going on within myself. And I didn't even know it at the time. Right? Until like I look back at it and I'm like, oh my God, that's what the fuck I was thinking about back then.
That was, there was another one that I had this idea for like, this weird, like acid trippy kind of song. Like, not that I've ever done acid, but and that was like, I don't know where that idea came from either, but like, it just kind of flowed through me. And then after I like read the lyrics back, I was like, oh, fuck, this is about so-and-so and me. And like the feeling of like when we were first together and blah, blah, blah. Like it was really like just flowed through. I also have like one song though that doesn't feel like me. Like it's not me. And I struggle with it for that reason. And it's probably the most like, if I was going to release it, it'd probably be the most commercially successful because it's so predictable. And like, yeah.
What do you mean it's not you? Like when you wrote, like when you sang it, when you let it get out of you, like were you thinking that this is genuine to you, or did you just think, okay, this sounds good, I'm going to roll with it?
I think it was probably originally it was like inspired by like that after I saw the Yeah Yeahs, it was like that song just kind of like flowed through but it's not in my style. It's not in anyone. It's not in the AES style either. But I just like, I don't know. It's usually like my songs have pretty violent imagery or like just graphic elements to it. I'm not even talking about like swearing. There's always like an element of like death and dying. And like, I think I joked once that every song I write is about sex and death and something at the same time. And I'm not joking. This one has nothing about sex or death. The death of a relationship, sure, but it's so like, and because of that, because it lacks that element of like sex and death and graphicness, it doesn't feel like mine, but I wrote it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to like release it as like a hidden track on the record. It's like the last thing that you hear.
Yeah, it's weird because I've come across those times where I knew some of the things that I was saying weren't inherently true to how I was feeling. I just know how to make things sound good.
Yeah.
You know, and it kind of sucks when you look back on that part of yourself, because it's like, okay, like with it, whatever, like with my art is and whatever my creativity is, I want to make sure that it sounds genuine, at least in terms of I could look back on that and I could say, my intention was to just be as true as possible. And then you kind of feel yourself going through the motions, and the structure feels good and the creativity feels good. Mm-hmm. Then you look back and you're like, that wasn't me at all. That was kind of a farce. Yeah.
Well, like this song I'm thinking of, like I could sell that song to Taylor Swift and she would take it. You know what I mean? Like that's how it felt. Like this isn't me. I should sell this to somebody.
Yeah.
Like I guess will be a commercial success for somebody.
So keep that in mind. You get some decent money and then just sell your soul. And
yeah, no, exactly. Well, and that's part of the reason. I was like, oh, if I release as a hidden track, you know, maybe that's something that's like not a political move, but like a move that you can make is like, yeah. And like maybe I should just like devote more time to playing with it, because the other thing is too that like, would you agree that your writing has evolved over time?
Oh God, yeah. Like compared to how I always had a way with words, but I think at least for my writing, I'm able to like structure it a lot better, because like the path from how I feel to what I write is a lot shorter now.
Yeah. So I feel like I used to give myself shit for not having published music prior to now, and I still haven't. You know, it's very much in the works. Maybe by the time this episode comes out, it will be done, but who knows? I find that the work that I was doing before was not as good. Like, I have one song from 2014. That's probably the oldest. Or, you know what? I've got two songs from 2014. And that is the most that I hold on to. Other songs, like, that are older that I was writing when I was before the age of 20 or 21, like shit, like bad. And so I like don't hold on to those. So I think that part of and I think back like, ooh, if you would have released that would have been like fucking horrible. Like, ugh, you wouldn't want that to represent you or your sound. So in a lot of ways, like writing and your art period grows and progresses as you do. And interestingly, the high school I work at, and most often do this type of thing, but they do a celebration of writers in like a whole week, and they have like performances or like lectures like every period for an entire week about like writing. And they have everything from authors, comic book writers, illustrators, videographers, musicians, all this stuff. And my coworker was like, well, why don't you do one for the podcast? And well, number one, we don't really get too in inappropriate stuff, but like there is some content here that like maybe some of my colleagues would maybe judge me for or whatever. But also too, I think that like podcasting is not really, it's hard because like it's very much like conversational jazz, right? Like we're just riffing off each other and we're improvising. Like we've got a topic, but then we just kind of let it go. Sometimes you and I walk in with notes, or like you like to process the topic and like think about it before you come in, right? I kind of just go like spur of the moment on the cuff, but I might have some ideas that I want to bring in, right? So I kind of told her like, well, number one, I don't think of the podcast. Like I don't really want to tell my kids like what my podcast is. Like the kids know I know how to podcast and they don't know why. And like some kids are like, you must have a podcast. Like, can you tell me what it is? I'm like, no, this is for me.
No, I will corrupt their minds. Like they'll be saying like catchphrases and you're just like,
they're gonna say pussy tits all the time. And I'd be like, fucking Brent.
All the time.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck I'm going to be doing. Like, it's already bad enough that, well, I think it's actually a good place to be if you hate the shit you previously done in one sense or another. So like whenever I read some of my old writings, I don't usually miss what I felt. If anything, I miss kind of being more abstract back in the day. Like when I was in my, late teens to early 20s, I actually like would write a lot more creatively, like poetry or like some of those stupid stories that I've shared on this podcast and like the embarrassment episode. Like I at least like was able to explore in those ideas. Whereas now I'm kind of just, rooted in just nonfiction. But I think like if you really are changing, that means that you shouldn't be 100% happy with everything you've ever done. You should be happy about where you're going next. Like even on this podcast, I'm like listening to some old episodes about myself. I'm like, wow, what a cocksucker, but there's sometimes where I'm like, holy shit. Okay. That's kind of how I want to do this from now on and take it in that direction. And sometimes it fails and sometimes it succeeds.
Yeah. And I think that the hard thing is too, I've heard that like the moment you think you're the shit, you actually suck and you should like, you know what I mean? Like the moment you think you've got it, you really need to get back to work because you don't got it anymore. And like I think I'm just getting situated in a place of, I'm trying to get prideful of my work, not like boastful, but like have some like ownership and like recognize that like, hey, what you're doing is like awesome and worthwhile. And part of that's, like the self-esteem rebuilding process. Oh my God, my therapy session this week was like fucking intense and powerful and talked a lot about that. And just like the deep rootedness that sometimes our culture and the people around us, like that from the time we're so young, we're so critical of ourselves and no one really understands how it got there. And then we did some work to really uncover like where mine came from. And it was like fucking devastating. But, I really think that's like part of my recovery is like, like thinking I'm worthwhile and that like what I do is good. Because for so long, like my whole life was defined by, again, it doesn't matter all the good things you're doing and all the good stuff. What matters is the fact that you're not X size. And because you're not X size or X weight, you fucking suck and you'll never be good enough, right? So getting over that and just kind of being like, no, I'm me and that's fine. And like the hard thing is that like, I think that I'm not going to sound like anybody else, which is good, but it's also bad because like it's unique and it's like very much me, but it's also bad because like you want to have like similarities that people who like similar things can find you or like you. And I'm worried that I won't sound like anything else and people will just be like, what is this? What do we do with it?
It's the way I see it is it's not the product so much as it's one, the intent, and two, it's if they can feel that you're genuine. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's writing, period. Like if an art, period. Like if there is genuineness and like human truth and like reality within the folds of the song or the product, like then it's fine. Like I remember when I was friends dating a music producer, audio engineer, he told me that like it doesn't matter like if it's good or not. What matters is that you're like people are trying and it's like coming from them. It's the expression that matters, not the quality necessarily, although that like is a factor for commercial gain and whatnot. Like he was like, no, it just matters that you're like putting yourself out there and this is a part of you. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. And it gets to the point, at least where it becomes hard to differentiate between the art and the industry.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to play more to the industry and like be more, I guess, successful, it would kind of be like Lady Gaga's journey in the Star is Born movie.
I didn't see it. Truth be told, I don't think I'm going to like it.
You probably won't. I'm just saying like, here's the thing. I'm too biased because I can't see Lady Gaga doing it. She can do no wrong in my book. So that's kind of, but just like the movie starts out, I mean, like no spoilers, but the movie starts out where she's literally like she's like working in the back of like a shitty restaurant. Mm-hmm. And like, she's literally like, just like she got shit. And then she's like singing at a drag bar.
Yeah.
But then, Bradley Cooper like meets her and then like throughout the story, you kind of see like her transition, like how she's kind of selling herself where like towards like the middle of the movie, like she's like this superstar and like, she's all glammed up and like her hair is dyed. And instead of seeing kind of the more like alt country roots, she's singing more of like the pop tracks, and you can kind of see, but she's mega fucking famous.
Well, interestingly, like if I understand this correctly, if I know my Lady Gaga history well enough, I think Lady Gaga has been very open that she started being super commercial, super poppy, because she knew that it would sell, and then she could make the shit that she wanted. And so, like, even if you see the difference between the Fame and the Fame Monster, the Fame Monster is way more avant-garde. Now, it like fully isn't avant-garde, but it's way more edgy to it than her previous record. And then from the Fame Monster, what was the one that came after? Born This Way? Like, they progressively have gotten more and more out there, except I think for that like Joanna one, which was named after her aunt, that's kind of like pseudo-country-ish.
Yeah, it's at least more to the shit that she wanted to do, and like she wanted to dedicate like the album, and particularly that song, to her aunt, and like the aunt has a story behind that. Mm-hmm. But even Lady Gaga said that no matter what throughout her career, and when she was wearing the meat and all that shit on her, she said that she wanted to at least try to make a statement by saying, like, at least like she had some sort of control.
Yeah.
But dude, like, she started out like she was Stephanie Germanotta, and she would just like work these like small clubs, and it would just be her and the piano, and people are like, why the fuck is she doing? So she's kind of like Bob Saget in a way. Like Bob Saget, like people are like, when they see the Full House guy, and then they see him coming as like this really dirty comedian.
He's raunchy as fuck.
No. He started out as the raunchy comedian, and then he did Full House, and now he's going back to his roots, and people are shocked. So like with Lady Gaga, like she didn't, like she's known for like that like she's like known for that shit that I know and love, but she started out like just her and the piano, like, and even her dad would like help her drag the piano upstairs like every single day just to like help her practice with her music, and like her like talent and range is so much fucking better than the shit that she was made famous for, like showcases. I still love like Born This Way and all this shit, but in terms of just like the range she has, you see that more now. Even like in A Star Is Born, like goddamn, like she just belts that shit out, but she's at least remaining more true to herself in terms of like her talent. If she wants to do something, like she does it. So
I hate that song, by the way. I hate the Born This Way song. Not the Born This Way. The Star Is Born song. I fucking hate it.
Tell me something good. You're gonna sing
the I'm a deep bed. Like, fucking kill me. Like, no, I don't like it.
Dude, I love that song. That makes me feel good.
Dude, everyone likes that song. I'm also like, wow, people are gonna stop listening after I say this. I've never listened to Hamilton, the musical. I understand it's supposed to be a work of creative genius. I have no like drive or will to like watch Hamilton or even learn about it, to be honest. Even though I know it was so cool and such this, but I fucking hate musicals. I fucking hate them.
Yeah. So.
See, now that we've lost all of our listeners because I say I don't like musicals.
I think most of the people listening to this episode are gonna be like, nah, we don't give a shit.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
But I mean, if they know, it's people are like, why are the roles reversed? Like Brent loves Lady Gaga and Gabi hates it. So like all the shit that's supposed to be hated, I love.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just too much of a hipster or an asshole or something like that. I don't know.
Dude, you gotta give her a chance, man. It's not.
I mean, I like Lady Gaga. I like her. I like the Fame Monster. Like, oh my god, and especially when she did like the crazy. Do you remember the music? Was it MTV or the Grammys where she did what was the paparazzi song? And she like had like the blood and she was like hanging from a chandelier, like so cool and weird. And I remember when Telephone came out, which was her and like Beyonce. Love that song. Yeah. I was jamming out to that song actually a couple weeks ago. I was like belting it out in the shower.
I also could be a little biased with the movie because 1, Lady Gaga's in it. 2, Andrew Dice Clay is her father.
Oh, well, duh.
3, Eddie Griffin is a pastor.
Eddie Griffin?
Yeah, Dave Chappelle's... Eddie Griffin's...
Oh, yeah, Dave Chappelle's in it.
Yeah, Dave Chappelle's in it. And Eddie Griffin, he's another comedian. He Undercover Brother?
Nah.
Voodoo Child?
Nah.
Fuck, he was like Malcolm and Eddie, that show in the 90s?
Nah.
Oh, shit. Okay, so he's kind of like more in the 90s. He was one of like the kind of the... I don't want to say Def Jam voices, but like he kind of he rode the same kind of trip as like Martin Lawrence and there's Martin Lawrence, Damon Wayans, Eddie Griffin.
Cool.
But And then Star is Born kind of unlocks my sappy side. But I did see the Judy Garland version. I didn't like that one as much.
You know what? Judy Garland. I remember in Rocky Horror Picture Show, that's like the last scene with Frankenfurter is like a total ode to Judy Garland, because he like sits on the edge of the stage and like cries and like his makeup drips down, and that was supposed to be like Judy Garland.
So, are you saying you're not a fan
of Judy Garland?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
I can't do it. I don't find it, a lot of people think that old Hollywood stars are like beautiful and tragic, and I just don't.
So you're anti-gay now?
No.
Oh God, you hate the gays.
No.
Oh God, Gabi.
I just don't like Judy Garland.
I didn't think that you'd be the one to deplatform this show. I thought I was on my way there. Oh my God.
I know I said I don't like Judy Garland. I said I don't like musicals. I don't like Judy Garland.
No, you just said you don't like the gays.
I love the gays. I just said I love Rocky Horror Picture Show.
No,
that is a queer icon of a movie.
No.
My dad dressed up as Frankenfurter when he was like a teenager.
Yeah, but that's, I don't know, Tim Curry. If there's anyone who would like be good at what he does, it'd probably be, I don't know, he's just like, Rocky.
That was like, do you know he went into like such a depression after then? Because that was like what everyone knew him for, and he like backslid into like depression. And what's another, I think we've talked about this, Clue. Have you seen Clue?
Not
it's
yet.
so campy. It's awesome. I love it. And Tim Curry's in it.
Yeah.
He's the butler.
But see, like at least with writing, I at least know one of two things about myself. One, if given the time, I can be creative and I can make something that I am personally proud of. Mm-hmm. Two, I also know it's to the point where I can sound good and then just like exercise the skill, but take the heart out of it.
Yeah.
So like if I had to write a bio about, I don't know, like somebody like in class or something, and it was something that had to be in a newspaper, I know like I can play with the structure and write a good news piece on something, like, whatever it is, but that's not necessarily my forte. It's kind of like, I always wonder what is going on with the people who are talented musicians, but the only music they release is like the "You're on Hold" song, or like the elevator, like they just like doop doot 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 doot.
Like, you mean chill hop, or do you mean just like beats in general?
Just like the basic, like it's there's no artist behind it. It's just generic music, but those are made by musicians. So it's like the guy knows how to play guitar.
Yeah.
And they do get a paycheck from that. But is that like, were they feeling that? Like, was that where's the celebrity biopic movie of that? The guy that just wrote the jingles for songs, and he's just
right.
like, all I feel is doot, 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 doot. And then like, he doesn't get a brush with fame. It's just that, Allstate uses
took his jingle.
Yeah, not even in the commercial, but just like when you're put on hold and you don't hear any music or lyrics or no credit, it's an unrecognizable song. But, it's kind of like, because at least with writing is also a tool.
Yeah.
So that's why, kind of like it is with playing guitar and, I don't know, being a part of the trades, like not every structure that you work on in the trades is, a home that you're building. It's just a job, but you're doing a job well. So,
well, and I think that writing is I think it is like a cathartic thing, and it's so a part of you. Like, and I also forgot to mention, like, I mean, I've written now one book chapter that will come out in a textbook, or not really a textbook, like a reference book for teachers on like education. And I have another chapter coming out that I've collaborated with my friend. And so like those two things. So technically I'll be like a published author, like come November. Right. And like the funny thing was like, I had to sign a paperwork that I could get like royalties or whatever, which basically means like I could get like, $8 at some point in my life from the sales of this book or whatever. But like that type of writing, I'm passionate about my job. Like I love being a teacher, and I love being able to potentially like positively impact other teachers by enlightening them to like how I teach, and like how, I think everyone thinks that they're doing the best that they can, but like I but I like really feel like I'm doing the best I can. I really think if other teachers, included these practices into their classrooms, or heightened what they already do, like it could be just so much better. Right. But like that type of writing is like one part of me, but it's not all of me. Right. And we're all like multifaceted, but like writing can be this like fluid thing that like it's when I'm journaling and I'm just processing through like all of my thoughts. And then it's creativity when I am writing music or poems or whatever. And then it is informational and something I have to do for work. Even like for evaluations and stuff for work, I have to write something for each one. And so that whole like process is just like, it really shows me how writing is so pervasive, like throughout my whole life.
I used to always enjoy writing. Like when I was a kid, like I always enjoyed more of like the English and the spelling and like the more like.
You enjoy spelling?
Yeah. Like I'm not great at it, but like I like it. It's kind of like I like carving pumpkins. I can't make one for shit that looks beyond what a 5-year-old would do. Like I understand like the more math and sciencey people trying to understand the purpose for writing, kind of like how the creative people are trying to find an understanding for the purpose of math.
Yeah.
Like right now in your job in your life, you don't need algebraic equations,
not just yet.
Kind of like how some people think, okay, there's never going to be a part in my life where I'm going to write a 5-paragraph essay with an intro, a thesis statement, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion with MLA citations on, why I want to be a hairstylist or why I want to do this. But at least with the writing, the way I see school in general, like I understand the whole institution and like the debt behind it all and the social expectations where if you don't go to school, you are a piece of shit and, like it always helps. But at least to the way I see it in its truest sense of the form, school is kind of like Mr. Miyagi. Mm-hmm. So for those of you who don't know, if you've seen The Karate Kid, either the remake or the original, Mr. Miyagi is kind of like the teacher. So I'm referring to the original in this case because that's the one I have the most reference of. There's scenes in the movie where Daniel, or as he says, Daniel-san, wants to just learn how to fight. There's an upcoming tournament. And all Mr. Miyagi is teaching him how to do is like paint the fence, wax the car, fuck it, like whatever it is, just like seemingly menial tasks, like just like shitty, mundane, useless. And he's like, and then it comes to the point in the movie where Daniel's like, what the fuck, man? I want, like, he doesn't say that, but he's just like,
Ralph Macchio is like a 13-year-old, like, what the fuck, Mr. Miyagi?
Hey, you dickhead, come here. Oh, look, teach me how to fight. He's like, okay, show me paint the fence. And then like, Mr. Miyagi starts hitting him, and then like he like uses the paint fence motion. He's like, "Show me wax a car," and then he just and like it was this huge revelatory moment where he's just like, "Okay, now you do fight," and I'm just like, "Holy shit!" And I see that with school where, yeah, it's never going to be like the point where I am going to be at work or even like creatively where I'm going to have to use an algebraic equation, but I understand the process that your brain goes through to solve those problems. Same thing when it comes to writing. Like if you know how to like use the structure of writing, or if you know how to use the formulas of math, or if you know how to use the scientific method with like just like analyzing, a lab. So all of these parts of school, no matter how shitty you think the classes are, but if you find a teacher that really like speaks to you and like really knows how to teach the class, then, all of these subjects are working out a part of yourself.
Yeah.
And besides, as creative as I am, I couldn't tell you how to make a fucking phone. I can comment on the phone and like the socio-cultural, like economic impact of why the fuck cell phones are, kind of the thing that's been, people have been using to demonize like how shitty the culture is when in fact, it's actually our values that we put on the technology that's not being in question. However, I couldn't tell you how that shit works.
Yeah.
And if it breaks down, I'm at the complete mercy of getting a new one and all that shit. But we need math and science because at least like with math, that the way I see it, like math and science is how the world works.
Yeah.
There's math and science literally within every single aspect of what makes life work. So for instance, like this table is measured like completely perfectly.
There's engineering to this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the creativity is what we like are drawing and writing on top of this table. Mm-hmm. So it's two sides to this. It's two sides to the same coin. So I feel bad for the people who don't open up their mind enough to at least learn the structure and learn the importance of writing. Because if you are the math and sciencey type, you still have to learn how to articulate yourself. Because even in a pragmatic sense, or a practical sense, how are you going to learn how to articulate yourself to get a raise? How are you going to, try to convey yourself? Let's just say some shit goes down. You have to file a police report.
Yeah.
Or let's just say that you want to, give a nice gift for somebody. At least having that tool easily accessible is worth having. Mm-hmm. Same thing with math. Yeah, I'm never going to do algebra, but just looking at the numbers and the pattern recognition.
Yeah.
It's a lot. That's really fucking helpful. But I understand not everybody likes school and it's not for everybody. And some people like more subjects than others. But, if used correctly, they all have a purpose. It's just with mine, I found my greatest skill to be my voice. And then number 2 is my writing.
Yeah. And I think that to your point, with writing, it's kind of there's 3 parts to it. There's the brain or the science of it. There's the science to it of how do we write? How do we write effectively? There's the art of it where we have beautiful things literary devices and figurative language and poetry and symbolic stuff. And then we have the soul of writing, which really hits at that genuineness part of us that permeates the words and can really affect you. And I think the best example that I can give is the short story, The Foghorn by Ray Bradbury. Have you read it?
No.
It is a short story. I'm going to totally spoil the plot here, but The Foghorn is about a lighthouse. And in the lighthouse, there's these 2 old men lighthouse keepers who've been there worked there for years. And there's no town within 100 miles of this lighthouse, right? And it's this November night and it's storming and they're lighting their tobacco pipes and they're just talking. And then all of a sudden, you know how a foghorn, the light moves around and makes kind of this low moaning noise, right? This, right? So they're smoking and then all of a sudden they look out to the sea and all of a sudden they see this thing coming up from the waves and it's going higher and higher and higher. And it's a Loch Ness monster and it's covered in seaweed, right? And it says that the narration says that it's this, plesiosaur and it thinks that the moaning noise is its long lost mate that he finally thought he found. And he comes up and he realizes it's not, and that he's all alone, and it's not his mate. And so he just slowly descends back into the ocean. Fuck. You just felt for a fucking dinosaur, right?
First of all, dinosaurs don't exist. Bad story. I'm just kidding. No, I'm just being a...
Then I realized that this Girl Scout was actually a 5 million year old babysaur dressed as a Girl Scout.
Goddamn Loch Ness Monster.
Goddamn Loch Ness Monster. I ain't giving you no 350. That's probably the funniest recurring joke in South Park, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But you just the beauty of that is not only that Bradbury was a prolific writer and he just did everything that he could to be creative, but that story that has a fucking Loch Ness monster in it made you fucking feel and remember the loneliness of existence sometimes and how we're all that plesiosaur. I don't even know if it's correctly a plesiosaur. I think that's what it's called, but this Loch Ness monster creature, that feeling of loneliness and trying to find your mate and your belonging. And just these 2 lighthouse keepers see it and they're the fuck? But yeah, then it's just so beautiful and haunting and sad. Oh, it's amazing. Bradbury was the best at that, at affecting people with his writing.
I always wanted to make it an attempt to read more of his shit beyond Fahrenheit 451. I read about halfway through Dandelion Wine.
Oh, yeah.
I loved it, but I just fucking put it away. And I was because it wasn't assigned for class anymore. And this was high school. I was a senior and I just loved that
Dandelion
fucking book.
Wine. That's all about nostalgia and growing up. If you want, so The Foghorn is a short story and he has a collection of short stories called, he's got several, but if you really want a good horror one, The October Chronicles is his kind of horror, fantasy, sci-fi collection. I mean, all of his work kind of is, but that one specifically won the Bram Stoker Award for Best Horror writing whenever it came out. So that's where the foghorn can be found, but you can Google like a PDF. But like, The Illustrated Man is also a story where like the Veld comes from, which we know from our writing lab experience. A lot of kids read that short story where it's like the kids have this room that basically comes to life. It's very much like a technology thing. And one day it kind of takes over the children or they get taken over by it and harm is caused because of it at those hands. Did you know that Ray Bradbury introduced the idea of the butterfly effect?
Did not know.
Because he has this short story, I forget what it's called, but these time travelers go back and they're in charge of killing the dinosaurs to like affect the time, like that was destined to happen. So they have to go back and kill all the dinosaurs. And so they're told like, you have to kill all the dinosaurs, but don't kill anything else because you don't know what's going to happen when you do, like how you'll mess up the timeline in the future. And so they do their job and at the last minute, one of the time traveler, like scientist guys accidentally steps on a monarch butterfly and it erupts like the course of history because of that. And that's where the butterfly effect comes from.
Oh, I just thought it was the Ashton Kutcher movie.
Right? But it's not. It's Ray Bradbury, Waukegan's own.
Wow. And I actually visited his grave, Ray Bradbury's.
Oh, in Hollywood?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's like 50 feet from Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah. And then poor, oh God, I forgot his name. Poor Roy Orbison. He's somewhere buried there. His grave was at this one certain location, but they relocated him, and now he's just there, and nobody knows where the fuck he is.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, but Ray Bradbury's like around, like he's from around here.
Yeah, he was born in Waukegan, and the son of Swedish immigrants, and he lived there until he was, I think, in his teenage years, and then they relocated to LA, and that's where he died.
Yeah, but goddamn, man. But
did you know literally we had that celebration of writers and this guy was a Ray Bradbury biographer. That's why I know all this shit. And I went home and read The Foghorn like that night. It's so fucking good. But did you know that Ray Bradbury is the one who made the spaceship Earth thing at Epcot Center in Disney World?
No.
He's the one who designed that.
Oh, shit. And
he also did a few episodes for Twilight Zone. And he basically did whatever the fuck he wanted. He was so cool and so full of life and wow. But especially his work speaks to the power of writing, the beauty of writing, and how it just can really connect people and transcend time.
Yeah, I felt that there's no singular author that I can point a finger to where I could just say their whole body of work really inspired me, only because I've mainly read autobiographies. Mm-hmm. Or biographies of comedians and wrestlers.
I like to read biographies and memoirs, yeah.
Yeah, but some of the best ones I've ever read, Too Fat to Fish by Artie Lang. It's his first book. He has another one, Crash and Burn, which is his second one, and then his third one that just came out called Wanna Bet. But Too Fat to Fish, I read it just because I knew him from Mad TV, but the shit he says in that book, not just of the events that happen, but the way he constructs it and shit. I'm like, holy shit. Same thing with Bernie Mac's book, Maybe You Never Cry Again, which I kind of used as an inspiration to write the bio that I did on him in Black History Month. Just his way with words and his self-reflection. Tracy Morgan is like that too, surprisingly. I think he doesn't
get enough credit.
No, because he's just I'm gonna get you pregnant.
I'm Brian Fellows.
See, that's what I like to do. I eat cunt. I eat the pussy till I burp. That's Tracy Morgan. Aww. But the way that guy writes is just tremendous. And some of those, the best wrestler biography I've read is Bret Hart's own one. It's 500, 600 pages long. And he would cheat on his wife. That was kind of his drug on the road because a lot of wrestlers did pain pills. His was women. And then there was this one entry he wrote where I believe he was in Spain, and the way he detailed the fact that they were just out looking over the ocean, and then later on she was spooning him, and he felt her breasts up against his back, and he thought about his wife. But I was holy shit, I kind of want to cheat on someone. No, I'm kidding. But
I want to feel someone's boobs on my back.
Yeah, instead of just throwing mine up over my shoulders.
Yeah, no, that's a weird feeling. I hate when I have to do that.
Yeah, so, but At least with the writing, because they're conveying some sort of like honesty and they're playing with the feelings. And like, I really connect to metaphors. You know, that's at least like when I have conversations with people, I try to take what they say and then like relate it to something smaller just so I can have a bigger understanding of it. So any writer that uses a metaphor for something, I definitely connect with that. So I couldn't tell you the last fiction book I read, but some of the ones I like, The Life of Pi by Yann Martel. My all-time favorite fiction book is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Oh, wow. And talk about a book that like transformed genre and structure, because it's all told through like journal entries and newspaper clippings and like stuff like that.
Yeah, and just the monster, I'm like, holy shit, I totally feel like I'm the monster sometimes, you know, especially like when he's...
Who doesn't, though?
Especially like when he's, when Frankenstein's hiding in the woods and he's actually like... he found a little hole in their house and he's just like putting food there for the family, and the family doesn't know he exists because he's just like hiding in the shed. And then the family's so stupid, they're like, oh, look what the forest fairies gave us. And he's just here going, ugh. He's just all pissed off and heartbroken. It's just like kind of how I feel sometimes, you know, but
like you're doing such good, but everyone thinks it's a fairy doing it instead.
Yeah.
You feel unrecognized.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think my favorite book is probably Patti Smith's Just Kids, which is her memoir about her artistry and her relationship specifically with Robert Mapplethorpe, the artist. And like, that is like she is just like a poet trapped in a punk's body. Like, it's just so amazing, like the work that she's done. That's why actually, like, have you noticed that she's on that picture right there?
Really?
Yeah, she's underneath the top. She's the second photo on the right from the top corner. She has a t-shirt that says "fuck the clock."
Oh.
And I purposely put it there to remind myself, like, time doesn't fucking matter.
I don't know, because I really don't know anybody on there except the corgi, because I know it's a corgi. But I just thought like it was like Karen O minus the woman on the bottom right.
There's Karen O. The woman on the bottom right. And that, like, the one below Patti Smith is just like this beautiful, like, vintage photo. And the one at the very top is Jack White and Alison Mosshart. And then actually the other one is Karen O. And then the very top or left one is Alison Mosshart and Jamie Hintz of the Kills. Oh. It's a still from their song, The Last Goodbye. That is a piece of writing. The Last Goodbye. The lyrics are, it's the last goodbye, I swear. I won't. Oh, my goodness. Everyone needs to go home and listen to it and just weep. It's so good. I won't forget, for the past is behind me. Tomorrow reminds me just where. And there's this lyric about like, I can't. How am I supposed to break my own heart with my own two hands? Oh, I can't make ends meet on a dime and nickel love that don't go anywhere. Oh my God, it's just so tragic and like, just like arrows into the fucking heart.
See, like, I think you totally like A Star Is Born, man. Give that movie a chance. It's the same shit.
Okay. I will maybe give it a chance.
No. So is there anything that you want to do with your writing going forward, or something that you haven't tried that you would like to experiment with? Or like, do you feel like you're at home with how you write now, at least in terms of style and structure, but perhaps not as much with nuance and articulation?
I want to get better. Yeah, but I think it comes with practice and time. I think the whole process is just like a process and you have to accept that. So I just kind of want to get more comfortable with the process of writing and not shame myself if something doesn't come out the right way. But I also want to know like when something's good enough, because you can also revise your work to death. And I don't want to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where you just get into that mode of like, you could literally rewrite something 1,000 times and you still wouldn't like it.
Oh God. Like everything I've ever written, like even the Black History Month stuff, like I'm looking back on it, I'm like, God damn, I would completely change every single paragraph.
Yeah.
You know,
but you just need to internalize the Cyndi Lauper song. It's good enough.
Yeah.
It's good enough for the Goonies. Yeah, it's good enough for me.
Or as I was like Patrice O'Neill, leave good enough alone. Or, same thing with the shit that I've edited, like with my films and the other people's films that I've edited. I'm like, God damn it, I would like cut that like 2 frames shorter and just like linger on that moment instead of fucking cutting to a graphic. Like I just every time, and even if it's just like after I'm done with it, it's just this process of always changing. But at least like when you articulate yourself with writing and really like own it, then that means that you are kind of more in tune with yourself, at least the way that I see that.
Yeah. Now I have the Cyndi Lauper song stuck in my head.
Yeah.
It's good enough for me. It's good enough for me. It's good enough.
It's like kind of like, watch as I dive in. I never meet the ground.
That was my piano. That was just me.
Yeah. So, but, yeah.
In sum, fuck A Star Is Born. I ain't seen that shit.
In some, fuck you and your closed mind.
In some, Gabi just got us deplatformed because she's not watching A Star Is Born. She doesn't like Judy Garland. And what else?
You just hate the gays. You hate all the gays.
That is not true. I do not hate the gays.
Would you ever date a gay? There you go. See?
Sure. If they were into it.
I don't know.
Oh, that's funny. Okay. Well, this has been fun chatting about writing. Maybe we'll have to pick this up again because it's such an expansive topic.
Of course.
Yeah. Well, if you liked what you hear, you can like, comment, subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, CastBox. All of our episodes are at coffeeandcatastrophe.com. You can also like us on Facebook at Coffee and Catastrophe and follow us on Twitter at CCWBG.
And if not so already, check us out on YouTube because we're just working out the kinks. So perhaps at this episode's posting, we will be completely archived on YouTube unless we've been deplatformed after this episode because of Gabby's comments about Judy Garland. But in the meantime, take care of yourself, be good to each other, and fuck, write.
Yeah.
You know, because that's you. You're the writing.
Go home and write tonight. I don't hate Judy Garland. Jesus.